Welcome back. We're going to be looking at a teardown of a Cacagooooo camera. So it is actually Cacagooooo. This was something I bought a few months ago to see if it was more like a DVR in and of itself compared to just a Wi-Fi camera. So it does have Wi-Fi, so you can see it's got that connector there. I haven't connected the antenna to it. The model is an SNIP CHW11, made in China with a lowercase c. It says CE and FCC on it. Got a QR code with a long number on it. I've not tried pairing this at all, but the case is made out of plastic. It feels incredibly cheap. You've got a speaker held in the bottom here with 4 screws that I took out. And then underneath that, we have the actual device. Now, this is different to the Zossi one because it can take a SD card. So we can put an SD card into this, which means it can record locally. But you'll notice some similarities. You've got that stacked construction here. So you've got the IR LED board on the front, you've got the sensor in the middle there, and we have another board on the back with these spaces in between. So let's tear it down and see what's going on. I mean, one of the first things I notice on the bottom is it says, if we just zoom in a bit, it says, please install SD card before use, SD card format FAT32 or class 10. I mean, that's kind of a bit like saying banana or plate. FAT32 is the format of the disc, class 10's a type of disc. They're quite different. So we've got the speaker on the bottom there, you can see that, and we've got a microphone as well. So you can speak and hear what's going on around this. A lot of cameras don't have that. They're glued in, so we can't take them out trivially. So similar kind of style of construction to before. We've got a camera here, foam padding around the outside of it to stop the infrared reflecting back onto the inside of it. And then we've got an infrared LED board. So you can see we've got the infrared LEDs around the outside of it. And then at the top there we have what looks like a light sensor. So it's a slightly different colour. So we can take this off. It's only 4 screws, so we'll just get those undone. Again, I'm not really massively interested in this going back together. I just kind of want to take it apart and see what's inside it. So we'll take off these 4 screws. You might notice that I've cut my finger. I cut my hand with a knife the other day. There was blood everywhere. So excuse the plaster. Right, so what have we got going on here? Well, we've got one wire there. It's probably turning it on and off with the power coming through. That wraps round underneath that bit of foam. Let's back that bit of foam off. Yep, it's just trapped under there. So one wire going to there. Immediately I can see that it looks like we have an SPI flash chip. These come undone really easily. So they're very thin, those spacers there, those hex spacers. Compared to normal, they're normally much fatter than that. And we can take that board off. Right, so we've got the LED board connected to the front via 2 cables. So let's take this one off here. Don't want that. That one down there. That's got goop on it, which means, yeah, it's going to be hard to undo. I'm not going to try and force that, especially with my thumb being a little bit bleedy at the moment. You'll notice we've got those 2 wires there going through to, I'll just zoom in a bit for that. We've got those 2 wires going through to the infrared cut filter again in the lens. They've been twisted round. That was exactly the same as before. So they go through to there for that infrared cut filter. That thing clicks in and out with a solenoid. We've got the speaker and the microphone going to that board as well, coming through to these 2 connectors here. That does look like SPI flash and the SoC there. Let's drill into it a little bit more before we make any judgments about what's going on. Flipping over to the other side of this board, we've got a lot of resistors, capacitors, a few discretes, and there we've got the Wi-Fi board. So you can tell it's got this little antenna connector on it. So instead of that being connected as a separate module, you can see it's soldered on with 4 pins. So again, it's probably quite likely to be USB. The Ethernet magnetic there, so that goes through to the Ethernet port on the cabling. So it's interesting there. If we zoom in again, you'll notice this connector has been it's been glued in with this red glue, but it's wonky. They've not actually put it in correctly, and they've glued it in. The quality of production of these things is not massively high. Right, and then we've got the rear board, and it's connected with this flat panel connector, this flexible connector. So these are quite common. They're cheap, the connectors are easy. You know, if you want to have lots of signals going from one board to another, it's a nice easy way of doing it. And we can see on that board there, nothing on that side. Let's see if we can get these off. Might as well take these off so that it's completely out of the way. They're made of brass, it seems. Again, I think that's probably a more expensive material than steel or aluminium, so strange. So we've got this lower board here, and I mean, looking at that, we can zoom in on that a bit. All I can really see there is an SD card slot and a button. I don't know what would be here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 connectors. Looks like it should almost be a Wi-Fi board in itself or something. So it looks like something else should be there. All of these passives are not connected. So this really does look like it's just the SD card and that little button that I think, if we look to the base plate there, says, to get focus on that, says reset. So that's the reset button of it. So this baseboard doesn't really do much. So let's just take that off for a second, just so that it's out of the way. Oop, are these hard to undo? Oh, they flip up. Yeah, it flips up rather than pulls back, so that's undone. So we've got that undone. On this side, yeah, it really does look like we've got power supply, passives, nothing much going on, and that little Wi-Fi board and the magnetic, so not much going on there. So I think just to have a little bit of a better look on this side, what we're going to do is we are just going to take off the lens assembly, which will happen from this side. So let's pop these two screws out. It's a weird thing about a lot of these cheaper devices. They actually tend to have lots of different screw sizes in them, lots of different connectors, lots of different things like that. Whereas when you look at more expensive devices, they tend to be more coherent. They just want one screw size, one screw length to make things a little bit easier. So on this side of the board, we can see that we've got a few other devices. So let's see if we can get in a little bit closer on that. So how close can we go with this? That's not too bad. Maybe that's not in focus, maybe that's in focus. So we have the main SoC here, which looks like a Realtek chip. We've got the SPI flash there. That's probably a power regulator. Actually, I'm not sure. I think I need to get my magnifying glass to have a look at these. Probably what I'll do now is I will pause and I will go and get a magnifying glass so I can work out what these SOIC 8 chips are. I'll be right back. Well, that's 2 lessons from Big Clive there. First off, you should have your magnifying glass just to the side, but also you should have your carbonated buckfast right there for you, ready to go. Right, so I'm going to look at these chips on here and see what they are. I can't do that in front of the camera, unfortunately. Wait for the focus to come in. This is the SPI flash. It's a WinBond flash chip. This is a driver for the solenoid. But that one there, you'll notice if you look at the layout around it very carefully, you can take a small chip in one plane, you can take a bigger chip in the other. So I'm going to have to look up and see what that is. The part number I'm not quite sure. This is the SoC, an RTS 3903N. So it's a Realtek part again. So this isn't actually a high silicon device. Now again, here, if we can get the focus on that, I can see 3 pins side by side. 3 pins side by side. No text on them though, but I'm imagining that they are a serial port onto this. So this isn't designed to work with an NVR, it's designed to work independently by itself, connecting straight through via your router through to the cloud where you can view the footage. So these quite often have their own SD card in them, and they have that SD card in them to store that footage. These have some advantages and disadvantages. Of course, you don't have that central point of failure, but it also means that you have a device on the outside of your house that has your Wi-Fi credentials in it. You know, for different people, that might not be a risk, but it's not a great idea. The other thing I noticed that's a little bit weird on these is that they not only have a power connector, an Ethernet connector, but they also have a little button underneath a cap there. Now, I've not looked at the manual, but I'd imagine that's a reset button because it probably doesn't stay up for longer than a few days at a time before you have to reset it. So yeah, another interesting device. Realtek based rather than being high silicon based. Connecting through to the cloud using external SPI flash. That might be a serial port onto the camera. I'm not sure. So probably what I'm going to do next with this Cacagooooo camera is, again, try to connect to that serial port, try to connect to the Ethernet port and see what it does over Wi-Fi. So we'll be back with another part for this camera. Thanks for watching. Bye.